remember the day clearly, the day I was invited to a junior colleague's wedding, a day that would change the course of my life, and theirs forever. My name is Godwin, and I'm 32 years old. My life has been shaped by hard work and perseverance, something that those with a different mindset might never understand. The wedding was a grand affair, the kind that showcased wealth and status. I was there out of obligation, as this colleague had once been close. However, what was meant to be a celebration turned into something entirely different when the bride, without an ounce of hesitation, said something that shocked me to my core. "People with low education and no money should sever ties with my husband," she announced loudly, her eyes scanning the room, landing on me as if to make sure her message was clear. Her words were sharp, cutting through the crowd's cheerful murmur like a knife through butter. My heart sank, and I could feel the eyes of others turning toward me, their silent judgment echoing in the lavish hall. The groom, my colleague, stood beside her, a smirk playing on his lips. Instead of defending me or even staying silent, he joined in, adding his own insults to the mix. The humiliation was overwhelming, but I held my head high, swallowing the bitter pill they had served me. In that moment, I made a decision. I would cut them out of my life, but not before ensuring they regretted ever judging me based on something as trivial as my education. They would learn that true worth isn't measured by degrees or wealth, but by character and actions. Let me take you back to where it all began. I grew up in an average family, not wealthy, not poor, just ordinary. My parents, both college graduates, had high hopes for me, but I had different plans. While my peers were focused on getting through high school and dreaming of college, I was more interested in finding work. I dropped out of school early, much to my parents' confusion. But in time, they supported me, understanding that I needed to carve out my own path. I started working in a factory, doing labor-intensive jobs that most people would find undesirable. But I was determined. I moved from one job to another, gaining skills and experience until I eventually became a painting contractor site supervisor. Now I'm a service department manager at a major machinery manufacturer, a publicly traded company where I've worked for 7 years. My job involves visiting clients, overseeing machinery installations, and handling repairs and maintenance. This work isn't glamorous, but it's honest, and I've earned respect through my dedication and hard work. My life was moving forward, but little did I know, the past was about to catch up with me in the most unexpected way. It was just another day at work when my company-issued cell phone rang. I was on my way to another client visit, driving on the freeway, when I saw the company's name on the caller ID. My heart sank a little. Not again, I thought as I pulled over to answer the call. It was a complaint, another one that I would have to deal with. Apologizing profusely, I assured the client I'd be there as soon as possible. I rearranged my schedule, knowing it was going to be a long day. After working until well past 7 p.m., I returned to the branch office only to find Theodore, the same colleague whose wedding I would later attend, chatting happily with someone from sales. Theodore was 2 years younger than me, and we worked in the same department. He had once been a polite and humble junior, someone I enjoyed mentoring. But that changed the moment he discovered I had dropped out of school. From that day forward, his attitude towards me shifted dramatically. "Got a minute, Theodore?" I called out as I entered the office. "What is it?" he replied, his tone filled with irritation. "There was a complaint from one of your clients this morning. I had to fix it myself, but tomorrow we're both going to apologize. Why did you leave it unattended for 2 days?" Theodore shrugged, clearly uninterested. "I had plans both days," he said nonchalantly. "The CEO over there is always bossing me around. Maybe they should rethink how they treat me." Excuses. That's all he ever offered anymore. I had no choice but to report the issue to our area manager, something I hated doing but was necessary. Theodore didn't seem to care, though. Instead, he scoffed, accusing me of being jealous of his education. "You're just bitter because you dropped out, and I graduated from a prestigious university," he sneered. I could hardly believe my ears. Theodore, once an eager and respectful junior, had turned into someone unrecognizable, consumed by arrogance and a sense of superiority. It wasn't just his attitude that bothered me. It was his incompetence. There were too many complaints from his clients, and it was becoming a major issue. The next day, we both went to the client's site to apologize. The president of the company was livid. Зрения. Его слова резкие и агрессивные. This wasn't uncommon in industrial settings, and I was used to it. But Theodore, with no real field experience, stood there silently, contributing nothing to diffuse the situation. After the meeting, as we drove back, I expected Theodore to reflect on the situation. Instead, he launched into another tirade. "Why are field workers so uncivilized?" he spat. That CEO practically advertises his lack of education with the way he talks. It was embarrassing to listen to. Here was a man who thought himself superior, yet couldn't perform the basic duties of his job without creating a mess. I tried to advise him, to get him to understand the importance of sincerity and professionalism, but my words fell on deaf ears. Theodore only laughed, dismissing everything I said. "I only took this job to gain some mechanical knowledge," he said. "I don't plan on sticking around. This is just a stepping stone." He didn't seem to realize that his attitude was preventing him from moving forward. With so many complaints, there was no way the company would consider promoting him to a sales position, where he hoped to go. Yet, in his mind, he was convinced that his problems were all my doing, my supposed jealousy of his academic achievements. Sometime later, I was on a business trip for a machinery setup. Things didn't go as planned, and I had to stay overnight to resolve the issue. During this time, other local branches would usually send someone to help out with major tasks like this. As I was looking for a place to eat near my hotel, I heard a familiar voice. "Hey, what are you doing here?" It was Theodore, and beside him was a woman I hadn't seen before, though she looked vaguely familiar. He introduced her as Selena, his girlfriend, and invited me to dinner. I accepted, though something about the situation felt off. During dinner, Theodore couldn't stop bragging. He mentioned that he and Selena had just gotten engaged, emphasizing that she graduated from the same prestigious university as he did, and came from a wealthy family. It was clear he wanted to show off, but I remained polite, listening quietly as he dominated the conversation. When he excused himself to go to the restroom, Selena turned to me. Her demeanor shifted, and I could see a coldness in her eyes. "I've heard a lot about you from Theodore," she said, her voice dripping with disdain. "You think your managerial role is a big deal, just because you've been at the company a few years longer? Could you please stop blocking Theodore's career?" Her words confirmed what I had suspected. Theodore had been bad-mouthing me to her. I decided not to engage, letting her say her piece without argument. When Theodore returned, we quickly finished dinner, and I made my excuses to leave. The next day, I went to troubleshoot the test run, but Theodore never showed up. My unease grew, and I discreetly contacted our area manager. When he looked into Theodore's business trip application, it became clear. Theodore had filed a false claim. He hadn't been on a business trip at all. He was out with Selena. The area manager assured me he would handle the situation, and I left it at that. Time passed, and eventually, the date for Theodore and Selena's wedding was set. I wasn't invited, which was a relief, but a week before the ceremony, something unexpected happened. Our area manager, who had been scheduled to give the main speech at the wedding, asked me to attend in his place due to a last-minute emergency. I initially declined, but he insisted, so I reluctantly agreed. On the day of the wedding, I arrived early and ran into Theodore and Selena. They looked surprised to see me. Theodore's surprise quickly turned to scorn. "My elite friends and I all have degrees from prestigious universities and work in top-tier companies," he said smugly. "I didn't think you, a dropout, would fit in, so we didn't invite you." I remained calm, explaining that I was only there to speak on behalf of the area manager. Theodore's face paled slightly, realizing that my presence was official. As the ceremony began, I waited for my turn to speak, keeping to the sidelines. When the moment finally arrived, I took a deep breath and stepped up to the microphone. Theodore and Selena glared at me, clearly wanting me gone, but I stood firm. "Congratulations on your wedding," I began. "If you thought I'd stick to the usual pleasantries, you're mistaken. Theodore isn't exactly commendable in his job, but this is a celebratory occasion, so I must use only the highest praises. Top-tier graduate Theodore, you are exceptional in accumulating customer complaints at work. Your unrepentant and arrogant behavior, always blaming our clients, really showcases your thick skin. I'm always impressed." The room fell silent as gasps and whispers filled the air. Theodore's face turned red with rage, and Selena stood up, shouting at me to stop. But I continued. "Our Ivy grad Theodore is quite the trickster. He's been lying about business trips to go hang out with his fiancée and claiming expenses for it. That's pretty bold. In clear embezzlement." Before Theodore could reach me, the door to the hall swung open. In walked our area manager, and to everyone's shock, the president of the client company Theodore had wronged. Selena's face drained of color as the president marched straight up to their table. "So lying about wanting to quit your job to marry me was a lie?" the president demanded. It was then revealed that Selena had been working as a hostess at a club, a fact she had hidden from Theodore. She had borrowed money from the president to pay off her debts, then disappeared, planning to marry Theodore instead. The room erupted in chaos. Theodore, completely blindsided, turned on Selena, demanding answers. But she had none. The area manager stepped in, confirming that they had evidence of Theodore's misconduct, and he would be suspended pending further investigation. The wedding was called off, and the once lavish event ended in disgrace. Theodore was fired, and legal proceedings were initiated to recover the money he had embezzled. Selena faced fraud charges, her dreams of a secure marriage shattered. As for me, I walked away from the scene with my head held high, knowing that I had done what was right. I had severed ties with Theodore, not out of spite, but out of a need to protect myself and uphold my values. I would continue to live my life with integrity, regardless of the challenges thrown my way.